Hi, welcome to Elizabeth Reads. We are now reading chapter 40 of Jemima Small versus the Universe. We are getting so close to the end. Who wants to hear what happens in Camp Go Wild? Straight lines, Mr. Nelson yelled across the car park. I moved forward, trying to suppress a yawn. Being at school before 6 a.m. should be illegal. I want a perfect meter between each form class. Mr. Nelson was in full Roman dictator mode, if Roman dictators wore high visibility cagules. Nice rucksack, Jemima, Lottie said, cutting in front of us. I hope you're not going to camp naked. I think I'd be sick. I looked at Mickey, but he had his headphones on and was singing Let's Go Fly a Kite to himself and our entire line. It's a joke, Lottie, I said. Anyway, it's not mine. It's my dad's. Your dad camps naked? Ew, she squealed and shouted down the line. Jemima's dad's a nudist. Mickey pulled his headphones off just as Mr. Nelson walked past. Really, Lottie? That's fascinating. Jemima's dad's a nudist. Mr. Nelson smiled at me, then turned back to Lottie. I must say, I never noticed at parents' evenings last year. He's not a nudist, Mr. Nelson, I said. He's a painter. It's just this joke on his rucksack. Lottie thinks she's funny, Mickey said. I see, Mr. Nelson said, tucking his clipboard under his arm. A comedian. Do you know, I love hearing jokes, especially on long journeys. Congratulations, Lottie. You've just been upgraded to first class. What? Lottie said. Mr. Nelson smiled, also known as a seat next to me on the coach. Hop in. I smiled and Mickey gave me a high five. That will keep Ratface quiet for a few hours, he said. Hey, isn't that Gina? I turned around and saw Gina coming straight towards me. Maybe she wants to tell you the nutritional content of Cowpat. Hi, Jemima. Gina beamed at me. Isn't this exciting? I've just spoken to Heidi and Harry, and I've asked Mr. Nelson to put you three in my group so I can give you some extra support. But really, it's so we can have some extra fun. She lifted off the ground a little bit when she said that. Apparently, there's a mud challenge tomorrow. I was too tired to ask what a mud challenge was. The name suggested it would not be the highlight of my camping experience. I thought we could do some extra swimming after the water polo if you like, instead of kayaking, as we'll already be in our wetsuits. I just love swimming outdoors. And there's a hike to an old fort we could do instead of the abseiling if you'd prefer. Heidi said she doesn't like heights, and I thought you'd probably enjoy the history. Mr. Nelson said it's fine. I had to blink a few times to check I was definitely awake. Did Gina just get me out of abseiling and kayaking? She held up her hands for a high 10 and said, Awesome! I clapped my hands against hers. Gina was way better than an empress on a tarot card. She was a real-life sporty guardian angel. I fell asleep against the coach window and woke up to Mickey jabbing my arm saying, We're here! I rubbed my eyes. A sign saying, Camp Go Wild, stared out at me from a hedge. I lost my phone signal about half an hour ago, Mickey said. Check yours. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. No bars, I said, but I packed travel Scrabble. Mickey chucked his travel pillow at me. Our coach parked in a clearing next to a huge forest where Mr. Nelson dropped the bombshell that we'd be walking to camp. 2 miles. Don't disturb any of the wildlife, he called after we'd all collected our bags. Observe, don't disturb. That's the countryside motto. 2 miles, I said to Mickey. Wildlife? He replied. We stared at each other. They'd better have Wi-Fi at this camp. He put his rucksack on both shoulders. And waffles. We'd been walking for about half an hour when we climbed over a stile straight into a field of cows. Forward, Mr. Nelson said. A few people followed him, but the rest of us stayed in the corner by the fence. Come on, observe, don't disturb. Cows are completely harmless. Cows kill 5 people a year, I said, leaning against the fence to get my breath back, and probably injure hundreds more. They look slow-moving, I explained to a small crowd gathering, but they are actually lethal predators. They can run at 40 miles per hour. Mr. Nelson stopped. He surveyed the growing group of people assembling near me by the fence. Are you going to believe me, a Duke of Edinburgh award leader and head of history, or Year 8 student Jemima Small? But, Afzal said, she is going on Brainiac, sir. A cow mooed loudly, and a few people jumped. Mr. Nelson put his hands on his hips. Right. Well, if Jemima's correct about these cows being killing machines, you don't want to wait here like sitting ducks, do you? Onward! Slowly, everyone started walking. I stayed towards the back, and Mickey stuck close next to me. This walk was definitely against our human rights. Come on, you two, Mr. Nelson said. Pick up the pace a bit. I looked at the empty signal bars on my phone. Mr. Nelson, I called, if there's an emergency, how do we make a call when there's no signal? Mr. Nelson laughed. You shout help, like we did in the olden days. I was so glad Dad had packed me that flare. After a while, a blue triangular flag appeared in the distance. Nearly there, Mr. Nelson shouted. Head for the flag. I could make out a line of people waving flags of different colors like they were trying to tell us something. Or maybe warn us. It's this thing from the olden days called semaphore, a bit like Morse code. The way you hold each flag signifies a letter of the alphabet. It was probably the way people had to communicate around here because of getting no phone signals. Once we arrived in camp, we didn't even get a proper rest before we had to put up our tents. I dumped my rucksack in the grass, then Heidi, Jazz, Aaron, and I put up our tent. Other people were struggling with theirs, but it was simple logic, really. Plus, we all got a set of instructions. Miss Fraser said ours was looking the best, so we were rewarded by being made to help everyone else. Great job, Jemima, Gina said, holding a cup of something that smelled like hot chocolate, but probably had broccoli or something in it. Mickey almost tripped over our guy ropes on his way over. He was wearing luminous orange waterproof trousers. Don't say anything, he said. Mom was worried about me getting lost on the orienteering. She'll probably be able to see you orienteering all the way from Clifton in those, Gina said, laughing. I smiled. They're probably visible from space. I turned to Gina. Which one's your tent, just in case there's an emergency? Oh, I'm staying in the teacher's lodge over there. She pointed to a cozy-looking cottage at the edge of the field. It was so typical of our teachers to make us get hypothermia while they stayed in luxury accommodation. The team leaders are camping out here with you. I picked up my rucksack. Oh no, it had been sitting in a giant cow pat. Gross, I said, pulling out a packet of baby wipes. Oh, don't worry, Jemima, Gina said. It's only a bit of fertilizer. Won't do you any harm. She started walking towards the meeting point. It's pure NPK. What does that even mean? Mickey asked, taking a baby wipe and helping me clean off my bag. Thanks. Oh, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, probably. Notice she didn't mention the dangerous pathogens or high levels of ammonia. This whole camp is a death trap. Mickey smiled. You literally know the nutritional value of a cow pat, he said, wiping his hands. I went to the toilet block while the other girls got changed. I deliberately took ages so they'd gone to the meeting point before I got back. I got undressed, put my swimsuit on, my clothes back on over the top, then pulled Dad's gaiters over my jogging bottoms. I was sweating by the time I'd finished. I couldn't believe I'd been worried about hypothermia. Our tent was like a sauna. I unzipped the doors just as Mr. Nelson's voice came booming through a loud hailer. Hurry up getting changed, all of you. It's not a fashion parade. Assemble at the meeting point. Last group here will be on lunchtime washing up duty. It was exactly like camping with my dad. In a few minutes, I had to put on a wetsuit in front of all the girls in my year, if they even had one that would fit me. I'd never wanted to stay inside a tent so badly in my entire life, even one that stank of cow pat. I zipped the tent back up and slowly headed over to the meeting point, watching the Camp Go Wild team leaders' flags whipping in the wind, and I wondered what the semaphore was for help. The end of chapter 40. I will see you next time for chapter 41. Bye-bye.